What's up, everyone? Welcome to NBA Crunch Time. I'm your host today, TJ Zwarich. We got a small little two-game slate ahead of us for the NBA Cup semifinal. And to help me break it down today, I have my friend Tasteful Tides, Tim Buell. How you doing, Tim?
Yeah, I'm doing well, TJ. Definitely we got some NBA Cup semifinal action tonight. It's two pretty good games. I'm going to be watching. I don't watch NBA every single night, but I'm going to be watching these games. I'm pretty excited. You know, I don't mind this whole cup thing. I think it's pretty cool, actually. I didn't really like it at first, but I'm kind of liking it now. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, and I think it's kind of interesting from a DFS perspective too, because there are some pretty obvious like core cash guys, but I think, once we kind of go through that, those couple guys, there are different ways to kind of construct our teams.
How to play cash games today? If they are on the Orlando Magic, yes, they can go in your roster, and that's essentially, I think, how cash games are going to end up looking. But ready to break this one down with you from a real life basketball perspective. I like these NBA Cup things a lot. Like, I do think it makes the season a little bit more fun. The players do seem to really care about it. They want to get those guys at the end of the bench with the lower contracts. They want to get them paid, and this is a way to do it. So it has made it a little bit more enjoyable from a real life basketball perspective. From a DFS perspective, I don't like it. I don't like all these 2-game slates that we've been getting. I want to get back to 6 to 8 games right in that middle area, because that to me has been a lot more enjoyable to play with. But only 2 games on the slate tonight. We, of course, have a full set of NFL games coming tomorrow, which you and I will be on various shows helping take the people up to lock starting at 9:30 a.m. So make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on that show. I won't be watching the basketball tonight, Tim. It's my wife's high school reunion, and so that's what we got going on. Probably not going to be there very long. We'll honestly probably be home before the Spurs OKC game even starts. Or if not home by then, like that's probably going to be the range. I don't think we're going to be out too late. We got her dad's watching the baby, and so we don't want to leave him high and dry watching the baby all night. And so we're probably not going to be out too late, but I'm so tired. It's so cold outside. I would just love to just tuck in tonight and not have to go anywhere.
How cold is it where you are? Because it's like probably 0 degrees where I am right now.
It is. Let me do the quick double check to switch it into Fahrenheit, but it is minus 19 in Celsius right now. So it is -2 Fahrenheit. Feels like minus 10 with the wind.
Yeah, so we're a little bit warmer than you by like a couple degrees, but not by much.
This is actually not as bad as earlier in the week. Earlier in the week, it was like we were finally hitting that Celsius Fahrenheit converging tier. Like it was in the -30 range. But next week, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have a couple days in the 40s, and so that's pretty exciting. Getting back above 0 in Celsius into the 40s for that. So that's going to be pretty nice. But people don't care about the weather here in Saskatchewan. They care about tonight's 2 NBA games. We got the Knicks going up against the Magic. We got the Spurs going up against the Thunder. We will go position by position on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Then we will take your questions. If you have questions, get them into the RotoGrinders live stream Discord chat or get them into the YouTube chat. I'll go to YouTube after I go to Discord. YouTube, all we ask is that you hit that like button. Tim, give me a little overview. 2-game slate. How are you planning to attack this one?
Yeah, so I mean, it's you can attack it in a couple different ways. I think it really depends on like what you want to do with SGA. There's definitely cases to be made either way. I think depending on what you want to do and play him or not. I think I'm going to be playing him. I'm not playing cash games tonight. I'm just going to be playing one single entry team on both FanDuel and DraftKings. But I think I'm going to lean on playing him just because it's you need raw points. It's not, you're not really necessarily worrying about points per dollar on a small slate like this. The way that this kind of slate kind of breaks down, like I'm focusing on raw points, and I think he's got the highest raw point potential on the slate. So I'm going to be kind of starting off with him and building out my teams from there. just because, again, this is kind of like, again, you just want to focus on raw points. Like, you're not so worried about points per dollar stuff. So I think that's one important thing to talk about. There's other ways you can play it. Like you could start more balanced and start off with like Jalen Brunson or something like that as your most expensive player. But I don't know. I think I'm just gonna use SGA as my anchor on both FanDuel and DraftKings. He's 10-4 on DK, 10-7 on FanDuel. So, and then the other situation is like we have Anthony Black projected to start. I think there's a chance that Tristan Da Silva starts. I think Anthony Black's a really, really good play anyway, but Tristan Da Silva would end up being like your top overall value. So like I'm just kind of starting off like whether Tristan Da Silva starts or not, I think he's like my next guy in with that SGA build. So I think he's a really, really strong value. And then we got to talk about Wemby. He's just going to be an exclude button for me. We have him projected for 26 minutes. Maybe I'm assuming he plays right around 25. I'm fine with that projection. I just think he's too expensive. So I just went ahead and just excluded him from everything. And I think I would be surprised if he burns me in this matchup against this Thunder team. I know he's an absolute freak, but I'm just not going to be rostering him today.
All right. I feel very similarly. Like, I'm always on if Wemby's on the slate, play him, jam him in no matter what, but maybe not first game back after a lower body injury. Like, I want to wait for those minutes to ramp back up a little bit. We're not really getting a discount on him. And I just don't really feel the need to pay $600 more for Wemby than a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander tonight. Like, on a slate where there is more value and there's more games, SGA is like $1,000 more expensive on both sites. And so at this price, definitely want to jam SGA in there. Let's start going position by position here. Let's talk about the point guard on DraftKings first. We will go to FanDuel after that. But in the meantime, who do you got at point guard on DraftKings?
So I already gave like my spiel about SGA. Definitely, I'm just going to be starting out with him. He's the stud that I'm going to be jamming in, kind of regardless of site, regardless of format. I think he's going to be my guy in single entry and large field stuff. So he's definitely the guy there. Anthony Black, he's point guard, shooting guard. He is 5,400 on DK. He is 6,300 on FanDuel. That's like the spot where I want to keep an eye out on starting lineups and keep an eye out about what the projection team does with Anthony Black's minutes if he doesn't start. So his minutes projection would come down a little bit. We have him projected for 34 minutes right now. I would just be curious to see how far they would take those down because that would potentially impact his projection. Because right now, if he starts, I think he's pretty darn close to like a core play. If he doesn't start, I think I want to see what the projection team does. So that's just one thing to keep an eye out on. Jalen Suggs, I think is great. Like you said at the top of the show, like if they play for Orlando, like they're going to be a really good play today. So Jalen Suggs, I think is great on both sites. And then, it's a small slate. Like if you're playing large field tonight and you want to take some chances, De'Aaron Fox, I think is pretty interesting just because I think he's going to be the guy that gets squeezed out between the whole SGA, Jalen Brunson, Jalen Suggs. Like I think Fox will come in the lowest owned out of that group just because people are not going to want to stream somebody against the Thunder, especially with Wemby back. So I think he's super viable for large field stuff, but not something that I'm getting to in single entry. I had interest before, like, when I didn't realize that Wemby would be playing this many minutes. Like I kind of had interest in Dylan Harper. I think he's okay still in super large field stuff just because he's cheap. But again, not something I'm getting to currently in single entry. Same thing kind of goes with Case and Wallace. And I think that's basically where I would end my pool. I don't think I would go anywhere below Case on Wallace.
Agreed there. Don't think I'd be getting to any Jones or Kolek even in a bunch of lineups today. I am with you where SGA is going to be my primary building point. I think the kind of big decision people are going to be going with based on ownership from a cash game perspective is just choosing between Suggs, Brunson, SGA. I like SGA as my guy here. I'll still go some Anthony Black, like he's going to be a must play as well, but SGA is going to be my top choice here as well. You mentioned De'Aaron Fox. I do really like him for large field tournaments. San Antonio as a whole is going very well owned on this slate. So if you are playing a few lineups, maybe stack up that game in one of them just because, yes, it's unlikely that there's a lot of scoring, but it's only a 2-game slate. Anything can happen. De'Aaron Fox projecting for less than 5% ownership. He's really interesting. And the other guy I love for tournaments is AJ Mitchell. This is a guy that in, 18, 19, 20 minutes, he could pay off that price tag, no problem. If this starts getting a little bit ugly, say he gets 24, 25 minutes, because he plays like the entire fourth quarter, I think AJ Mitchell could be a smash slate breaking value on this slate. So big fan of him tonight. Don't mind Dylan Harper, but if I'm choosing one, I do really like AJ Mitchell for large field tournaments. How would you describe this big NHL trade that just went down today or yesterday? I can't remember when it was. Compare it to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Quinn Hughes just gets traded and not totally out of the blue, but Vancouver just looks really bad, so they're trying to unload their stars before he's a free agent. Who would this be like if Giannis got traded for? Give me the comparison of the Vancouver and Wild trade that just went down. Give me the NBA version.
I don't really know, to be honest with you. That's a tough one because I think Giannis is like a way bigger superstar than Quinn Hughes. So that's kind of it's just not that big of a blockbuster. I don't think it's, well, I mean, it is a big blockbuster, but it's not as big as if Giannis were to get traded. So I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna ride the fence with that question, just because it's just not. I don't think it's quite that big as if Giannis got traded. I mean, if Giannis would be like if like Connor McDavid got traded, like that would be like Giannis.
Now, don't disrespect my guy Connor McDavid like that.
I'm not. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. Top 5 guy. Come on.
I'm not. I'm just saying. Quinn Hughes is not as big as Giannis.
That's fair. I accidentally made my way onto Canadian hockey Twitter over the last day and a half, and a lot of Vancouverites are making it seem like this was like a Luka trade, like this was a Jokic trade type of thing in comparison, where it's like, I didn't know Quinn Hughes was that good now. But alas,
I'm sure in Western Canada, maybe Quinn Hughes is Giannis. Maybe that's kind of like what you're hearing right now. But I mean, obviously he's an awesome player, but he's not like, I don't think he's comparable as like a big of a superstar as Giannis is.
Take me to shooting guard on DraftKings. Who do you got?
Yeah, so I kind of talked about that Anthony Black scenario about whether or not he starts. We haven't projected for pretty big minutes right now, which is completely fine if he does start. But I would just be mindful of that if he's not in the starting lineup, and just kind of see what the projection team does with that. But he's a fantastic play. Taylor Smith has him cored right now in lineup HQ, and I agree with that. So I do love that. Desmond Bane, he's super close to a core play as well. The Knicks are a 3-point funnel, so this is in theory a fantastic spot for Desmond Bane. So, and we know that we really like this Magic team, so he's fantastic. Stephon Castle would be the pivot. It's kind of similar to De'Aaron Fox. I don't think a lot of people are going to want to go to Castle, especially with Wemby playing. Okay, so Black is starting. So, all right. So we really don't have to change anything. So Black is definitely still a core play. So Castle is the pivot. Josh Hart is okay, but you're getting more of an ownership discount if you go Castle. But Hart is okay. And then for value, I talked about Dylan Harper when we were discussing point guard. Same thing with Kason Wallace. The only other player that I would add is Jordan Clarkson, at least in large field stuff. I think he's gonna. We have projected for around 24 minutes. I think he's okay. If you need somebody at that price point, you want to pivot off of Tristan Da Silva, who's going to be way more popular. And if you spend up like $400 more, I think Clarkson is a super interesting pivot off of him.
Derek Ringering pointing out that somebody in Discord mentioning that Jaylen Brown was allegedly spotted leaving the Vegas club at 4 a.m. last night. I just looked it up. This was posted by O-Town Magic Memes. So I don't think it's a real source when it's the Orlando Magic meme page that that news came from. So I don't think we got to worry about that all too much. Are you getting a Bane in cash games today? I was kind of surprised by his ownership projection.
I got to refresh ownership, I think, but yeah, he's definitely a very solid cash game play. He's currently popping in our first optimal as well. So yeah, he's definitely cash game viable. Not as, I mean, he's cash game viable on FanDuel as well, but I think he's a little bit better of a play on DraftKings.
I really like the call to pivot to Stephon Castle in large field tournaments. Either of those other Spurs guys I think are viable too, with a Dylan Harper or a Champagny in that same Rageous case on Wallace. Outside of Anthony Black, I think those Spurs guys would be outside of Black and Bane, I think those Spurs guys would be my favorite pivots. How about small forward on DraftKings? You going to prioritize Jalen Williams as a spend up, or is it going to be all about Tristan Da Silva as a cheapie?
I think current construction would call for going to cheapie with Da Silva. Obviously, I have no issue if people want to go a little bit different and maybe kind of get a little bit contrarian and pay up at small forward and go with Jalen Williams. We currently have Jalen Williams at 33% projected ownership versus Da Silva's 53%. Mikal Bridges at 66%. He's got 35% ownership. I think he's okay as well. He should play big minutes here. We have him projected for 37 minutes. He can kind of disappear offensively sometimes. He's definitely not safe, but I think for GPPs, that's okay. For cheap, I think it's Keldon Johnson at 4,800. If you don't want to go to Silva, and maybe spend the extra $1,000 for Keldon. I don't know if like we need to get to any Alex Caruso here. I think I'd rather just pay. I'd rather just play Da Silva or Clarkson, or even go higher to Johnson. I don't necessarily want to play any Alex Caruso here. I don't know if you have any differing takes on him. I saw there was a question in chat. They wanted to parlay Caruso overs. Which player from OKC gets the lower usage when Caruso gets minutes, so I can combine them?
That's kind of what I had just answered that one in the chat too.
You did? Okay.
Only one player. Dort, AJ Mitchell, Wallace, Wiggins, Caruso. Those 5 players kind of split a block of minutes. And so it really just depends which one of them are playing the best, how close the game is. If you are hoping for Caruso to play a lot of minutes, more often than not, you're kind of hoping this one is a close game, I think, because a close game is likely where you see Caruso close. He's not a guy that's going to close in a blowout scenario. And so probably somebody I'd mostly be looking at in, correlating with an SGA over or a Aaron Wiggins under kind of thing.
Yeah, makes sense. Just from like a purely DFS perspective, Caruso and Aaron Wiggins, I just simply have no interest in. Like, I guess if you're building at 150, if you want to throw them in there somewhere here or there, I guess that's okay. But in like a 20 max, 3 max scenario, I'm not getting to either one of them.
I'm not either. If I were to get to one of them, I think I would actually rather Aaron Wiggins, just because nobody's really going to be playing Aaron Wiggins today. And that is somebody that will close in a blowout. Whereas Caruso, I think that's going to be the one bench guy you can pretty much guarantee won't get blowout run, because he's getting a little aged and they want to give him some rest when they can, because he's a really good defender and they want him to be able to guard Jokic in the playoffs like he did last year. I like Keldon Johnson as a salary saver here if I'm not going all the way down to Da Silva. Same with Champagny. And then, Devin Vassell's price tag is totally fine too. I kind of like the idea of getting off of a chalky Mikal Bridges with this team getting a lot healthier outside of Deuce McBride. That's probably someone I'd be looking to get underweight to the field. But other than that, Jalen Williams up top, don't mind him. De Silva down low, don't mind him. And then those Spurs guys in the mid tier, I think are totally fine. Power forward, we got Paolo Banchero projecting for a fair amount of ownership today, but I think kind of all of these Orlando players, they've gone down in ownership a little bit as the day has gone on. Earlier in the day, they were kind of all projecting for like 60+% ownership.
Yeah, they have come down a little bit, but they're still going to be super popular just because they have the best on paper matchup, and we kind of know what they're going to be doing rotation wise. So it makes a ton of sense that people are going to play into them heavily. OG Anunoby, he's under 6K. Again, Taylor Smith has him as a core play, which I love. That minutes cap seems to be gone. He got up to 35 against your Toronto Raptors. Shout out Raptors. So it's definitely it's kind of an interesting position because you have OG and Anunoby in the mid range. You have De Silva as the pay down option, and then you have guys like Paulo Banchero at 81, Karl Anthony Towns at 91, Chet Holmgren at 76. So there are some really strong, pay up options. Paulo Banchero is currently popping in a ton of stuff. I like spending the extra 1,000 on Towns. That's kind of like what I would do. That the idea that I kind of like that is not really showing up in optimals a ton. That might be my pivot in single entry is go Towns over Banchero. Now that might not sound super contrarian to some people who are listening, but it is going to be. It's going to be kind of the more contrarian take here is to spend that extra 1,000 and go Towns. We currently have Banchero at around 43%. We have Towns at 28. So you're getting off quite a bit of aggregate ownership spending that extra grand. So I kind of like going Towns over Banchero. Spend like really like spend down options if you don't want to go chalky to Tristan De Silva. It's pretty thin. I guess it's just Keldon Johnson for me. Harrison Barnes maybe in larger field stuff, but I don't. Again, I'm not getting Denny Sohan or Aaron Wiggins or Jonathan Isaac. So it's really just going to be those spend up options or De Silva or Keldon Johnson.
I feel like I really want to utilize if I was playing an Aaron Wiggins or more likely a Keldon Johnson or De Silva, would rather be using them at the small forward position just because this power forward position is pretty stacked for a 2-game slate. You mentioned how good of a value OG Anunoby is, and then I think I would want one of Chet, Banchero, Towns, at least one of those guys in every lineup, even if I were running like 150. I still like OG, but probably more in like I'll be playing 2 power forwards, I think, in most of my lineups is what I'm getting at in this slate. I'm only playing 1 lineup, but if I were running out a lot more lineups, I'd be playing 2 power forwards, at least in probably all of them, potentially 3 in some of them. Like the Towns call, Banchero, definitely the cash guy, but even Holmgren as a tournament pivot, I really, really like. How about the center spot?
Yes, center is really ugly. There's a couple of questions in chat about Wemby. One from SJ. Tim, what are your thoughts on Wemby? Honestly, I'm not building out 150. I'm not building out 20. I'm only building 1. But even if I were building out 150, like I said at the top of the show, I'd be excluding Wemby. I don't like this matchup. You're getting no price discount. Like he's pretty much fully priced at 11,000. He's. It's just not. I just don't want to play this. Like he could end up playing 20 minutes. Like I would not be shocked at all. And then you're really going to be in bad shape if you spend 11K. I just don't see him getting up to 30 here. I think if anything, he comes in lower than what we have here. So I just have no interest. That's just my personal opinion. Obviously, if people feel differently or have a different lean, then it's your money. But I don't think Wemby is a very good play at all tonight. The center position on the whole is not great. Getting to a ton of Wendell Carter Jr. and Goga Batadze in optimals right now. Our first optimal currently has them both in it. It's definitely pretty ugly in the center streets tonight. Wendell Carter Jr. He's definitely the safest. Mitch Rob I think is okay in GPPs. Hartenstein the same. I think that would basically. I think my pool would just be Carter, Batatse, Towns, Mitch Robb, and Hartenstein. Those 5 guys would just that would complete my center pool on DraftKings.
I think if I were running 150, I'd probably still include some Wemby just because of how weak this position is. Like outside of Towns, I think it's possible that not a single one of these centers score above 20 DK points. And if that happens and say Wemby scores 45, that might be enough to separate you in these in a large field contest. And so I would still probably include him at like 10 to 15% in 150. Not somebody I considered at all in my one lineup that I'm playing. But I think in tournaments, like he's absolutely a cash game play. Wendell Carter Jr., you play him in cash. But that's the one Magic player to me that I'd be most comfortable fading in large field tournaments. If I'm trying to get away from the Magic somewhere, Wendell Carter Jr., I think, would be the one I'd want to do it with. Maybe you're playing Towns at the center position instead of power forward, just because that's the guy that I feel most confident that he doesn't beat me. He's probably going to get 20 to 25 fantasy points, and great, but he's the one guy that I really think I feel the most confident that he's not going to absolutely go to town. Let's switch over to FanDuel. We got about 18 minutes left to lock. Lots of time to go position by position here and take your questions. But I do want to remind everybody that it's also a good time to get yourself an NFL 3-day pass. You can build lineup through the weekend for only $9.99. Perfect timing with the NFL tomorrow with another showdown slate on Monday. Get access to Lineup HQ, SimLabs, all the gadgets, all the gizmos, everything we have here at RotoGrinders for the NFL package for only $9.99. Get yourself a 3-day pass. Plus, if you are in Missouri, congratulations, you now have sports betting. There's lots of links, lots of promos that you can get yourself access to, and we got all of them right down there in the description here on YouTube. So when you're hitting that like button for us, go down there, check the description as well. FanDuel point guard, Tim, who are you going to be? Are you prioritizing SGA on FanDuel as well?
I am, yeah. He's 10-7 over there. Same kind of rule applies that I was kind of thinking about on DraftKings. It's all about raw points, and I still think he's the safest option to be the highest raw point player on this entire slate. So it's really no different for me. There's enough value. There's enough, a couple of punts here that I think you can go there pretty comfortably. Like there is a case that you can go a little bit more balanced tonight, but SGA, at least for me, is going to be in my single entry lineup. I think the next guy we got to talk about is Jalen Brunson right off the top. He's actually projecting for more ownership than SGA right now on FanDuel. I mean, they're pretty similar, but those are going to be the 2 top point guards. I still think De'Aaron Fox makes a ton of sense as a GPP pivot. Currently, Fox is currently at 4% projected ownership just because SGA and Brunson are eating up so much ownership. So I think Fox is super interesting for large field stuff. Anthony Black, again, 6,300. Probably better used at shooting guard tonight, but he is point guard eligible. Same thing with Suggs. Probably better at shooting guard, but 7,600. Those 2 guys would be your next point guards in for optimal type builds. Not really a ton of punts here. I don't think this is a spot. I don't think point guard is going to be the spot to be punting. If you really want to, Jordan Clarkson or Dylan Harper would be my 2 favorite.
Clarkson cheaper than he is on DraftKings, so I do think that's somewhat interesting. But like you said, probably would rather use him at shooting guard, and then nothing really to add other than even on FanDuel, I still have AJ Mitchell as a low-owned tournament value play. But again, probably getting to him at shooting guard because shooting guard not as strong as point guard. We don't have the SGAs over there. We do have Desmond Bane. He's priced pretty nicely. What are you doing at shooting guard today?
Yeah, so I want to play Desmond Bane. I just think that I'm going to prioritize more of my salary at the forward spots. So I think I'm going to be fading Bane in single entry, but if people don't want to do that, I completely get it. It's a fantastic spot for him. He is going to be highly owned. I just think that salary is better used at the forward spots. I'm going to be going Anthony Black here, but it's super close between the 2. He's fantastic. So is Suggs. Suggs is going to be the lowest owned out of that 3, out of that Bane, Black, Suggs group. Suggs is going to be lower owned. So I think he's definitely interesting for GPP. Stephen Castle, 7,500. he's another okay play. Again, for punts for me, maybe Devin Vassell at 5,800, maybe Kason Wallace at 4,700, and then we already talked about Clarkson.
All right, nothing really to add here that we haven't already covered. Just an emphasis that I do like the cheap grouping of Harper, AJ Mitchell, and Champagny for tournaments, with AJ Mitchell being my favorite. Small forward spots. You can play Bane here as well. You can play Bridges here as well. OG Anunoby nowhere near as cheap as he is on DraftKings. What are you doing at small forward?
So Paulo Banchero is kind of the play here. He's only 7,800. That is just way too cheap. We have him currently projected for 75%. He's going to be a terrifying fade if you elect to fade him. I would not be fading him in single entry tonight. I would just kind of eat that chalk. That price is just it's too cheap. He's too good of a player for that kind of a price tag. So I would kind of eat that chalk. He's an absolute must in cash games. So that's probably a spot where I'm just not going to fool around, and I'm just going to eat the chalk and play him. He might. I think he's better at small forward than power forward, but I mean, either way, just make sure that you have him. We already talked about Bane. Josh Hart is a really strong play at 7,400. Jalen Williams. I still think that Jalen Williams is going to be the lowest owned out of the Bane, Banchero, Hart, Bridges tier. So if you want to pay up a little bit more at your second forward spot with Jalen Williams, I think that's okay. Punts again would just be Keldon Johnson and Tristan da Silva. Yeah, so I think honestly, like you're really just staying in this Orlando New York game, and then the way to get different is to get into the OKC San Antonio game.
And I'm muted. There we go.
Yeah.
I think Champagny is probably my favorite OKC or Spurs guy to do that with, just because it's like Keldon Johnson, Harrison Barnes, certainly not projecting high ownership for either of the two of them, but I kind of view Champagny, Barnes, Keldon as pretty close to the same. And so I'll take Champagny projecting for sub 5% ownership there in large field tournaments, but in closer to the optimal stuff, just, man, stick to your magic. You got Da Silva, you got Bane, you got Banchero. That's all you really need tonight. Power forward position, we got a lot of the same names. Banchero is playable here. Hart's playable here. OG, Barnes, Keldon, bunch of these names that we already talked about. But you get to throw in Chet Holmgren, who is projected to be pretty low owned here on FanDuel. And Victor Wembanyama, who is even more expensive than DraftKings, but he's projected for 1% ownership, Tim. If you're playing 150, you get yourself 2%. Victor Wembanyama to make sure you're over the field.
You may have answered this when we were talking about DK, but how many points do you think he needs to, like, I don't know, to matter? Like,
I
50?
think because the center position isn't very strong, he could break the slate with more than like 60. He would need like 50 in a normal situation, but I also think that it's more dependent on the rest of the centers. Like if Wendell Carter Jr. and Isaiah Hartenstein both fail, then he might only need 43. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But still,
so he would still need to, even if those guys fail, he still has to exceed his projection.
Yeah, he would still have to exceed his projection. He would still have to exceed Karl Anthony Towns. So certainly not somebody that I'd be looking to go to in a single entry, 3 entry max, 5 entry max, 10 lineups. But if you're playing 150, I think you got to get over the 1% projected ownership.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess I haven't played 150 in like 7 years, so I don't have that kind of mind. I don't think. I guess if you really wanted to play 2% of him, it's not bad. But in a 20 max, I know I would not be playing him in a 20 max.
I don't think I would be either, unless it was maybe a lineup where I just like fully game stacked that game. But even then, how could I afford him because I'm playing the OKC guys?
Right.
Who else are you prioritizing power forward outside of Banchero?
Yeah, Karl Anthony Towns definitely has to be part of the discussion. I mean, 27% on FanDuel at 9K. That's not like a ton of ownership. So I think that's again, it's similar to DraftKings. I think that's an interesting way of like kind of building out a different team. Like he's going to be less owned than Jalen Williams. So you're obviously going to be playing Paul Bacharo at either small forward or power forward. But I mean, don't forget about Karl Anthony Towns because I mean he's not going to be super chalky. Josh Hart is going to be significantly more popular, and so is OG Anunoby. Great. I know that Towns is more expensive, but it's just a different way to build out your team. So I do love Towns quite a bit for GPP. We had a question in chat, like, are we going to be fading Chet? I wouldn't fade Chet. I don't love Chet. I don't necessarily love this game because the Orlando New York game I think is significantly better. But at 7,900 on FanDuel, he's completely fine. He's okay in GPPs, but there really isn't anyone to add here that we haven't already discussed outside of Cap.
Agreed. And as we pivot to the center position, I still think Towns is probably my favorite tournament option with Holmgren at number 2. But having said that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but you play Wendell Carter in cash. You can only play 4 Magic on DraftKings, but I think Carter is one of the ones you're prioritizing.
You mean on FanDuel?
Yes, sorry, on FanDuel.
That's all right. I knew what you meant.
Carter is one of the ones you want to prioritize in cash, right?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can play Wendell Carter. Goga is currently in our first optimal, believe it or not. I know it sounds weird, but I mean, Goga is, I think, a 1.2 fantasy points per minute player, so it is okay to play Goga, I think. But I do think that Wendell Carter is safer. But it's kind of between those two guys. It's definitely between those two guys because center is really, really ugly here. And then Hartenstein is probably your pivot off of Wendell Carter, but I don't necessarily love that. Like if you find a team and you have that extra $700, you can play Hartenstein. That's certainly okay. But center is really a drag today. Oh, and Mitch Robb at 4,100. Mitch Robb is probably he's an interesting pivot off of Goga because Mitch Robb is currently projected for 6%, whereas Goga is projected for 25. He's only $100 more than Goga. So Mitch Robb, I think, has got to be in your pool.
And FanDuel probably where you want to play him, where you get those extra points for blocks as well. We got about 6 minutes left till lock. Start taking some QQs here. DKGPP, Tim, you want Goga and OG Anunoby, Mitch Robb and Devin Vassell, or Wendell Carter Jr. and Wiggins? Not that last one. So Goga and OG or Mitch Robb Vassell?
Goga.
Yeah, that's the one I think I like as well. Rank these bros for DK Cash. Clarkson, Dort, Wallace. I think I would go Wallace, Dort, Clarkson, just reverse that order, but I don't think you play any of them in cash. Maybe Wallace.
I think you can consider Clarkson. I would not play Dort.
Switching over to the YouTube chat. YouTube, make sure you smash that like button for us. And if you're playing Showdown, Tim, would you play Wiggins at 3,800 or Dort for 3,600 on FanDuel? I think that really depends on the rest of your lineup. Dort is going to be 10 times higher owned than Wiggins. So if you are already finding somewhere else that you are getting different, go Dort. But if not, you're playing a pretty chalky lineup. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with trying Wiggins at probably a tenth of the ownership.
I think that was a really good way of answering that question. It really depends on your aggregate ownership of the rest of your team. So I agree with what you just answered there.
Thank you. What do you got here from Jim Thomas? DK, you want Batatse and SGA or Brunson and Wendell Carter?
That's like the super close top 2v2. I'm currently going the SGA one, but it's super close. That's a tough one.
I like SGA Batatse there quite a bit as well. My hot take in the expert survey today was Batatse outscores Wendell Carter Jr. straight up for fantasy points. And so I like that side quite a bit. Large field DK GPP from Blink-182 Rue. Is playing Brunson and SGA in the same lineup worth it if it also means playing Mitch Robb and De Silva?
That's okay. That's that. Yeah. I mean, I think that's completely fine.
No problem with that either. If the Spurs get blown out, who gets that late extra run? And would it be Dylan Harper? I do think Harper would probably get some extra run in the blowout. I think Cornette gets most of it until it would get real ugly at the end. That would switch to Olynyk. I think the Harrison Barnes, Keldon Johnson, that probably gets switched to a Jeremy Sohan. And Sohan, Olynyk, Harper, Champagny would be the four that I would probably be most confident closing in a blowout. And then the fifth one, I really don't know. Fifth one kind of is up in the air. Tim, who do you got tonight as your slate breaker? Who is taking everything down?
I would go Karl Anthony Towns. I know that's not the hottest, spiciest take, but that's my guy tonight.
I'm gonna go, and this feels gross. I like yours a lot better, but I'm gonna go with Goga Batadze as tonight's slate breaker. I think he is gonna have himself a big day, and I think we're gonna see not much out of Wendell Carter Jr. Chris Longo says he has Chet at captain with SGA, Wemby, Harper, and Johnson in that lineup. I honestly think using Chet at captain is probably different enough, but just it kind of is based on your own risk tolerance there. With like Dort is more likely to get you 20 fantasy points today than Aaron Wiggins is. Aaron Wiggins might only play 8 minutes, but Wiggins is also a far better point per minute producer than Dort is, and he's going to be a 10th of the ownership. So if you want to solo first place, absolutely go with Wiggins today. If you are thinking like, yeah, I just want to make sure I cash, I want to make sure I double up, I want to build that bankroll for NFL tomorrow, maybe go with Dort. But if you're shooting for first, Wiggins, I think, is the guy. FanDuel GPP, Barnes and Black, or just Silva and OG?
I guess the Silva OG.
That'll do it for all the questions. Make sure you smash that like button on the way out of here. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, and a reminder, Tim, Bobby, Dean, The People Show will have you covered at Grinders Live bright and early tomorrow morning, 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern, leading you all the way up to lock with the GPP Final Takes crew after that, the Crunch Time crew that features myself after that. So we got 3.5 hours of football content leading you all the way up to lock. Single lineup for FanDuel, you using Carter or Batadze as your center?
I'm going Batadze, but they're both okay.
No problem with that either. I think the only way I'd maybe favor Carter a little bit more in a cash game, but in any type of tournament lineup, and then even in cash, I think it's fine as well. Would be Goga Batadze for me. I like him quite a bit better today. That'll do it for today's show. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, talking some basketball with us. I will be envious of Tim hanging out, watching some basketball while I am out and about at a high school reunion that is not mine, but I'm sure it will be fine. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Good luck tonight in all of your contests. We will see you next time. Peace.